So if we want to talk about memorizing the unit circle. So as I said, there's a very easy way that I memorize it. So first things first, remember that this is the positive x-axis, that is the initial side, right? And then a positive angle is defined as going in the in the counterclockwise direction. A negative angle is a clockwise direction. So we're going to go around the unit circle in a counterclockwise direction. And then just remember, what does unit circle even mean? That means that the radius of the unit circle are all one unit, right? The first thing I start with is, right, so as I talked about, it's the initial side, that's your 0 degrees or zero radian mark. And then 180 degrees, right, traveling in the counterclockwise direction. I keep doing that. 180 degrees is the same thing as pi radians, right? So first I start with that. And then what I do is, we travel in the counterclockwise direction, right? Is filling out the denominators of all of the radian measures. And it kind of has this like little 6, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 6 type of pattern, right? So I'm going to go around and I'm going to do 6, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 6, right? And then we're going to start again, 6, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 6. Right? And as I said, these are going to be all of the denominators of the radian measures. And then a super easy way to remember it, I guess I could do red or pink, whatever. Everything in this quadrant is going to be pi. I'll talk about all of this, what this means. This quadrant is all going to be one less. This quadrant is one more. And then in this quadrant 4, you just have to memorize it's 5, 7, 11. So it's a good thing there's that store 7-Eleven. So that's easy to remember. So these are all talking about the numerators, right? So the numerators of this quadrant 1, as well as that quadrantal angle here at 90 degrees or pi over 2 radians, those are all pi. Next, you're going to do 1 less than the denominator. So here the denominator is 3. So 1 less than that is 2, right? 1 less than 4 is 3. 1 less than 6 is 5. And then in the third quadrant is 1 more, right? So 1 more than 6 is 7. 1 more than 4 is 5. 1 more than 3 is 4. And then same thing as this quadrantal angle, 1 more than 2 is 3, right? So that 270 degree or 3 pi over 2. And then the last but not least, 5, 7, 11. So this will be 5 pi, 7 pi, and 11 pi. So those are the ways that I remember the radians going around the circle. The other way, obviously, is talking about reference angles. So what is a reference angle? A reference angle, just remember it as one of the sides of the angles has to be the x-axis, right? So here is pi over 6 is 30 degrees, right? So here is a 30-degree reference angle. Right, so again, this is all talking about the x-axis here. This angle here is also a 30-degree reference angle. So notice that both of those denominators have a denominator of 6, right? If I keep going, this angle right here is also 30 degrees. That has a denominator of 6. And then you guessed it, this here also has a denominator of 6. So those all have 30-degree reference angle. And the same thing, there's 45-degree reference angles or pi over 4, and then 60-degree reference angles, so that's pi over 3, so on and so forth. So you can look at it as that way. And so all of the denominator 6 angles are all going to be the combination. So I'm talking about ordered pairs now. The combination, so square root of 3 over 2 and 1/2, those are a married couple. They always go together. Now the question is, which one goes first, the radical 3 over 2 or the 1/2? So all the denominator 6 ones all start with radical 3 over 2. Okay, 3 is my favorite number, so I just remember it's 3. However way you want to recognize it, right? So the quadrant 2 angle, right? They all start with radical 3 over 2, as I said, all the denominators 6's, except now the signs are relative to what quadrant it is. So all of the signs in the quadrant 2 should have the x value that is negative. Everything in quadrant 3, both the y and the x values should be negative. And then in quadrant 4, only the y value is going to be negative, right? So there's that symmetry. So that now all of the denominator of 4's, those are going to be the matching ones. So those are the square root of 2 over 2's. Okay, so just remember the root 2 over 2's, those are the ones that the X and the Y value are the same, or you could look at it as that middle one. So all of the, as I said, the denominator 4 ones by symmetry, right? Because those all have a reference angle of 45 degrees. Those are all going to be that combination. And then just don't forget, right, that the signs in the X, in quadrant 2, I'm trying to talk and write at the same time. All the X values are negative. Here, the X and the Y are the positive, so on and so forth, right? And here, sorry, in quadrant 3, all of them are negative. And then in quadrant 4, only the Y value is negative. Try talking and writing at the same time, right? So let me clear this up for a second because it kind of looks busy. Right, so then as I said, so that quadrant 1, so now all the denominators of 3, and I'm not gonna go around and writing it, I'm gonna speed things up in a second. Those, as I said, the 1/2 and the radical 3/2, those are the married couple. So those always go together, right? So if you notice, all the denominator 3 ones are going to be that combination, because those all have 60-degree reference angles. Now, if you want to know where, by the way, these ordered pairs even come from, like they seem random to you, check out, and I'll leave a link in the description of where, so I actually do a whole video on deriving all of these ordered pairs. So let's say your teacher doesn't have you memorize the unit circle. There's still a way to figure out what the radians are, but you're just going to have to know how to add and subtract fractions. I'm not going to do obviously all of them, but I will just show you how like one scenario looks like. So if let's say, so you do for sure need to know, right? This is obviously 0 degrees and this one is 180 degrees, right? So if let's say I want to find the degree measurement of this one. Remember, we talked about that has a reference angle of 30 degrees. So how could we figure out this angle here? Well, you do 180 degrees minus 30 degrees, right? And so this would be the 150 degree mark. So with the radians, it's the same idea, right? Instead of doing 180 minus 30, now we're going to, so to translate in radians, that would be pi minus 30 degrees, which in radians is pi over 6, right? So if I were to show that real quick, you would have to know how to add and subtract fractions, right? So my pi, which is 180 degrees, minus the 30 degrees, which is pi over 6, right? And so adding and subtracting fractions, if we put this over 1, you're going to need common denominators. So if you multiply both of those by 6, right? So 6 times pi is 6 pi, 6 times 1 is 6. Drop down the minus pi over 6. So now we have common denominators. What happens if we have common denominators? You just combine the numerators. So 6 pi minus 1 pi, surprise, surprise, that would be 5 pi over 6, right? And we already knew that's what it was. So me personally, I just like to memorize the unit circle. It just makes my life a lot easier. But you can do whatever floats your boat. I hope you found this video really helpful, and I want you to make sure that you check the description. I left links to also my online course if you're interested. I have chapter modules and quizzes and homeworks and step-by-step answer keys, and I have video lessons of those. So again, I left that link in the description. Make sure to like and subscribe, and make sure that you also leave a comment so that if you want to also request any future videos, I'd be more than happy to make those. So I hope to see you soon.